The universe does not like to be rushed. In the deep dark spaces between the stars, time does not flow like a river. It sits still like a frozen ocean. Here in the vast gap between our sun and the nearest neighbour, the silence is absolute. It is a silence that has weight, a silence that has existed for billions of years. There is no wind to carry a sound, no air to breathe, and no warmth to comfort the living. There is only the endless velvet blackness and the cold distant light of stars that are burning far, far away. At the very edge of our solar system, there is a shell of ice and rock known as the Oort cloud. It is a graveyard of frozen debris left over from the birth of the planets. These chunks of ice float in the dark, drifting slowly, almost asleep. They are the silent sentinels of our home guarding the border, where the influence of our sun begins to fade into the true emptiness of the galaxy. Nothing usually happens here. For eons, these icy rocks have danced their slow circular dance undisturbed. But then the silence was broken, not by a sound, but by a presence. Something new entered the dance. It did not originate from the birth of our planets. It came from somewhere else, from the deep abyss of interstellar space. It was a traveller from the dark. It moved with a speed that mocked the lazy drift of the local comets. It pierced through the invisible curtain of the solar system, moving at 26 kilometers per second relative to the sun. It was not aiming for the Earth, nor was it aiming for the sun. It was simply passing through like a stranger walking through a quiet garden in the middle of the night. As it drew closer to the inner solar system, the astronomers on Earth began to notice. At first, it was nothing more than a faint flickering pixel on a computer screen in Hawaii. It was just another speck of light among millions. But the machines that watch the sky never sleep, and they noticed that this speck of light was behaving strangely. It did not follow the rules. Most things that fall towards the sun follow a specific path, an oval shape stretched out by gravity. But this object was travelling on a hyperbola, an open curve. This meant it was not bound to our star. It was a visitor. It would swing by once, say hello to the sun, and then leave forever, never to return. They named it 3A Atlas. The I stood for interstellar, marking it as only the third object from outside our system ever seen by human eyes. The name Atlas was chosen because it seemed to carry the weight of a long, lonely journey upon its shoulders. As telescopes around the world turned to look at Atlas, the mystery deepened. The object was quiet. When comets come close to the warmth of the sun, they usually wake up. The heat melts their ice, creating a beautiful tail of gas and dust that glows in the sunlight. This is how comets speak. They release their history in a cloud of vapor, but 3I Atlas remained silent. It passed the orbit of Mars, then Earth, and it did not release a single puff of gas. There was no tail, there was no coma. It was a dark object. It absorbed the sunlight rather than reflecting it. It was like a shadow moving against the background of space. Measurements suggested it was not round like a planet or a moon. It was elongated, perhaps shaped like a giant flat disc or a long thin cigar. It tumbled end over end as it flew, spinning slowly every 8 hours. This tumbling motion made its brightness change rhythmically, bright, then dim, then bright again, as if it were signalling a message that no one could understand. The surface of Atlas was a reddish hue, the colour of dried blood or rusted iron. This was the colour of things that have been exposed to cosmic radiation for millions of years. It was the colour of ancient age. This object had been travelling since before humans learned to make fire. It had been drifting through the void while dinosaurs walked the earth. It had seen stars die and new stars be born, and now it was here. The most unsettling thing, however, was not its shape or its colour, it was the way it moved. As Atlas passed its closest point to the sun and began its journey back out into the dark, it accelerated. Gravity from the sun should have slowed it down as it pulled away like a ball thrown into the air, slowing down before it falls. But Atlas did not slow down as much as the laws of physics said it should. It gained a tiny extra push. In a normal comet, this push comes from the gas jetting off the surface, acting like a rocket thruster. But Atlas had no gas, it had no tail. It was a dry, dead rock, yet it had pushed itself away from the sun. It was moving as if it had a mind of its own, or as if it were being pushed by something we could not see. This non-gravitational acceleration confused the scientists. They checked their numbers, they checked their telescopes. The data remained the same. The object was defying the simple expectations of a dead stone. Was it a hydrogen iceberg invisible to cameras? Was it a dust bunny made of loosely packed particles, or was it something else entirely? The presence of 3I Atlas felt heavy. It felt deliberate. In the vast empty theatre of the solar system, it felt like someone had walked onto the stage, looked at the audience, and then turned to leave without saying a word. It was currently passing the orbit of Jupiter, heading back into the freezing night. It was leaving us behind, but it left behind a feeling of unease. It reminded humanity that the universe is not a dead empty room. It is full of things we do not know. It is full of travelers. The telescopes watched it fade. The signal grew weaker. The reddish glint disappeared into the black. The silence of the universe rushed back in to fill the space where Atlas had been, but the silence felt different now. It was no longer empty. It was a silence that was waiting for something. Down on Earth, the data continued to stream into the servers. People argued, papers were written, but high above in the cold vacuum, 3i Atlas kept its secrets. It tumbled silently, rotating over and over, drifting towards the constellation of Pegasus. It was a ghost ship in the cosmic ocean, and we were just islanders watching it sail past our shores, wondering where it came from and more importantly wondering who sent it. The encounter was brief, but the impact was lasting. We realized that the dark is not just empty space, it is a highway. And for the first time we realized that we might not be the only ones watching the road. The universe was vast, cold and beautiful, but with the arrival of Atlas it suddenly felt a little more crowded. To understand how we know what the universe is made of, we must first change the way we think about the night sky. When we look up with our naked eyes, we see points of light. Some are bright, some are dim, some twinkle, and some remain steady. For thousands of years, this was the only relationship humanity had with the cosmos. We were observers of a silent monochrome movie. We could track where the dots moved, but we could not touch them. We could not taste the air on a distant planet, or run our fingers through the soil of a dying star. We assumed that the composition of the heavens would remain a mystery, forever locked away by the impossible distances of the void. But the universe is not silent. It is constantly speaking to us, shouting across the darkness in the only language that can travel fast enough to reach us. That language is light. To a modern astronomer, a beam of light is not just a way to see an object. It is a courier carrying a backpack full of information. Inside that beam of light lies the history, the temperature, the speed, and most importantly the chemical DNA of the object that sent it. Unlocking this backpack requires a special key, a technique that transformed astronomy from a game of connect the dots into a hard science of chemistry and physics. This technique is called spectroscopy. Imagine you are standing in a room filled with musical instruments. If someone plays a single note on a piano, you know it is a piano. If they play the same note on a violin, you know it is a violin. Even though the pitch is the same, the quality of the sound, the unique mixture of harmonics tells you the source. Light works in almost exactly the same way. Every chemical element in the periodic table, from the hydrogen in your water to the calcium in your bones, sings a specific song when it is heated or illuminated. They emit light at very specific colours unique to them and them alone. Hydrogen has a specific pattern of red and blue colours. Carbon has a different pattern. Gold has another. These patterns are like fingerprints, or perhaps more accurately, they are like the barcodes you see on items in a grocery store. If you have the right scanner, you can look at a star burning billions of miles away, scan its light and read its ingredients list instantly. To see this process in action, we must travel to one of the most beautiful and desolate places on Earth, the Atacama Desert in Chile. Here the ground is dry, red and dusty, resembling the surface of Mars more than a landscape on our home planet. It is one of the driest places on Earth, which is perfect for astronomy, because water vapour in the atmosphere acts like a foggy window that blurs our view of the universe. In the Atacama, the air is thin and crystal clear. Rising from this red dust is a cathedral of science known as the Very Large Telescope. It is not just one telescope, but a collection of massive machines, steel giants that rotate with perfect precision to track the rotation of the Earth. Inside these domes lie mirrors over 8 meters across, polished to such smoothness that if they were the size of the Earth, the highest mountain would be only a few centimeters tall. These mirrors collect the faint ancient light that has traveled across the galaxy. But instead of just taking a pretty picture, the astronomers at the observatory do something more profound. They pass this light through a high-tech prism. We all remember prisms from school triangle-shaped pieces of glass that turn sunlight into a rainbow. When the Very Large Telescope catches the light of a comet or a star, it spreads that light out into a long, beautiful spectrum of colours ranging from deep violet to dark red. To the untrained eye, it looks like a simple gradient of colours, but to the astronomer, that rainbow is full of gaps. There are dark, vertical lines slicing through the colours, missing pieces where the light has been stolen. These dark lines are the shadows cast by atoms. If the light passes through a cloud of gas, the atoms in that gas will absorb very specific colours, the colours that match their personal energy fingerprint, and let the rest pass through. By looking at where these dark lines appear on the spectrum, astronomers can say with absolute certainty, There is oxygen here, or there is sodium there. This brings us to a cold night in the recent past when the great eye of the Very Large Telescope turned toward a visitor that was not from our solar system. This visitor was a comet named Borisov. It was an interstellar traveller, a chunk of ice and rock that had been ejected from a completely different star system light years away. It drifted through the empty space between stars for millions of years before falling into our neighbourhood. It was a ghost from an alien world, and it was moving fast. We only had a few weeks to study it before it would swing around the sun and vanish back into the deep dark forever. The astronomers in Chile pointed the telescope at this fuzzy smudge of light moving against the background stars. They engaged an instrument called a spectrograph, which is essentially a camera designed to read those chemical barcodes. They wanted to know what an alien solar system was made of. Was it like ours, or was it made of strange exotic materials we had never seen before? As the light from the comet hit the mirrors and was sliced open into a spectrum, the data began to appear on the computer screens in the control room. It appeared as a jagged line on a graph with peaks and valleys representing the brightness of different colours. They saw the usual suspects immediately. There were signatures of cyanogen, a common gas in comets, and there were signs of water. This was profound in itself. It confirmed that water, the essential ingredient for life, is not unique to our solar system. It exists elsewhere, frozen in the dark, waiting for a chance to melt. But then the astronomers noticed something else. Something that made them pause and check their instruments again. Hidden within the rainbow of the comet's light was a distinct clear fingerprint for the element nickel. At first this might sound mundane. Nickel is a common metal on Earth. We use it in coins, in stainless steel, in batteries. It is not a rare or magical element. However, in the context of astronomy and the physics of comets, finding nickel gas glowing in the atmosphere of a comet is incredibly bizarre. Here is why it was so shocking usually to see the fingerprint of nickel in space. You need heat. Extreme heat. You normally see nickel vapor in the atmospheres of ultra-hot stars or in the violent explosion of a supernova, where temperatures reach thousands of degrees. At those temperatures, solid metal melts, boils, and turns into a gas that glows brightly. But Comet Borisov was not hot. It was freezing. It was sweeping through the cold vacuum of space far away from the sun. Its temperature was far below zero. At these temperatures, nickel should be a frozen solid block of metal locked deep inside the rocky heart of the comet. It should not be floating around as a gas, and it certainly should not be glowing. Finding nickel gas around a cold comet is like walking into a freezer and finding a pot of boiling iron bubbling on a shelf. It defies the simple rules of how we expect matter to behave. The detection was faint, but it was undeniable. The heavy complex atoms of nickel were there, singing their song in the ultraviolet part of the spectrum. The astronomers were baffled. How could a cold lump of ice release heavy metal vapor? This is where the beauty of the scientific process shines. When faced with a contradiction, scientists do not ignore it. They dig deeper. They realized that the nickel was not being melted by heat. Instead, a different, more subtle process was happening. The leading theory is that the nickel was not pure metal. It was likely trapped inside a special kind of unstable molecule, perhaps combined with carbon monoxide. As the sunlight, even the weak sunlight from a distance, hit these unstable molecules, they broke apart. This process, called photodissociation, released the nickel atoms. As soon as the nickel atom was set free, it absorbed a photon of sunlight and then re-emitted it, glowing like a tiny firefly. The comet wasn't hot. It was just shedding its skin in a very specific chemical way. What makes this discovery so emotionally resonant is what it tells us about our place in the universe. After finding this impossible nickel on the alien comet, the astronomers went back and looked at data from comets inside our own solar system. They looked at the famous comets that orbit our own sun, and guess what? They found the nickel there too. It had been there all along, hidden in the data, too faint to be noticed until we knew what to look for. This realization bridges the gap between the alien and the familiar. For a long time we wondered if our solar system was special. We wondered if the recipe that cooked up our Earth and our sun was unique. But the light from Borisov tells us a different story. It tells us that the chemistry of the cosmos is universal. The same nickel that sits in the coins in your pocket exists in a traveller from a distant star. The same laws of physics that cause a log to burn in your fireplace are operating on a chunk of ice racing through the void at thousands of miles per hour. The Very Large Telescope, standing silent under the Southern Cross, did more than just detect a metal. It confirmed a kinship. By reading the language of light, we learned that the stuff of the universe is the same everywhere. There is a profound beauty in the image of that light beam. Imagine a photon of light that was born on the surface of a distant star billions of years ago. It travelled across the empty wasteland of the galaxy, dodging dust clouds and surviving the void. It hit the surface of the comet Borisov, liberating a single atom of nickel. That atom glowed, sending a new photon speeding toward Earth. That tiny packet of energy travelled millions of miles, pierced our atmosphere, reflected off the giant mirror of the telescope, bounced through the prism, and finally landed on a sensor to tell a human being, "I am here." It is a chain of events that connects the human mind to the deepest origins of matter. The spectrum is not just a graph, it is a narrative. It is the universe telling us its autobiography one line of colour at a time. The detection of nickel was a surprise, yes, but in science, surprise is just another word for a new door opening. It reminds us that nature is far more imaginative than we are. We build our models and our theories predicting what we should see, and nature constantly gently corrects us, showing us phenomena that are stranger and more beautiful than we dared to guess. As the astronomers at the Very Large Telescope packed up their data that night, the comet was already moving away, fading back into the darkness. We will never see it again. It will drift alone through the stars for eons. But we captured its ghost, we bottled its light, and in doing so we proved that even in the coldest, darkest corners of space, there is light to be read and there are stories waiting to be told. The language of light is vast, and we are only just learning how to read the first few pages. To understand the true nature of the object known as 3-Eye Atlas, we must first look away from the object itself and turn our gaze upward toward the stars. We need to understand the difference between how the universe bakes a cake and how a master chef constructs one. This brings us to the concept of cosmic alchemy, the ancient and violent process that created every atom in your body and every ounce of metal in the ground. For billions of years, the universe has operated as a factory. The primary engines of this factory are stars. In the deep freezing vacuum of space, gravity pulls clouds of dust and gas together. As the pressure builds, the temperature rises until the heart of the cloud ignites. This is a star. But a star is not just a ball of fire, it is a nuclear reactor. In its core, it takes the simplest element, hydrogen, and crushes it until it fuses into helium. This process releases the light and heat that sustains life. However, the alchemy does not stop there. As a star ages and runs out of hydrogen fuel, it begins to collapse inward under its own weight. This collapse creates even more heat and pressure, allowing the star to fuse heavier and heavier elements. Helium becomes carbon, carbon becomes neon, then oxygen, silicon and sulfur. It is a cascading chain of creation building matter layer by layer. But this process hits a wall. That wall is iron. Iron is the most stable element in the universe. It is the ash of stellar burning. When a star tries to fuse atoms to create iron, it no longer gets energy out of the deal. Instead, the process consumes energy. The fire goes out. The star collapses instantly and catastrophically, exploding in a supernova. This explosion is so violent that it scatters all those created elements, gold, silver, lead, uranium, and vast amounts of iron across the galaxy. These remnants eventually clump together to form planets, asteroids, and meteors. This is the wild way nature creates metal. It is a chaotic, messy, and violent process. Because of how nuclear physics works, nature has a very specific signature. In our galaxy, iron is incredibly abundant because it is the endpoint of stellar life. Nickel is also common, often found right alongside iron, created in the same fiery death throes of stars. When we find a natural metallic rock in space like a meteorite, it follows a predictable recipe. It is almost always a mixture dominated by iron, usually between 90 and 95%, with the remainder being mostly nickel and traces of other elements like cobalt. This is the standard distribution of the cosmos. It is the fingerprint of a supernova. Nature creates alloys, but it does so based on nuclear stability and gravity, not design. Now consider the human approach. Consider the artificial way. When human engineers want to build something, they do not rely on the random scattering of supernova dust. We are not satisfied with what nature offers us in the dirt. We take the raw ore, melt it down, and purify it. We remove the impurities that make the metal weak. We act with intent. If we want to build a bridge, we need steel that is strong and somewhat flexible. If we want to build a jet engine, we need a metal that can survive thousands of degrees without melting. If we want to build a submarine, we need metal that resists the corrosion of salt water. To achieve this, we create specific alloys. We take iron and mix it with very precise amounts of other elements. We might add chromium to stop rust. We might add molybdenum to harden it. We might add nickel to make it tough. Crucially, in high-performance engineering, we often move away from iron-heavy mixtures entirely. We create super alloys. For example, in the most extreme environments like the inside of a nuclear reactor or a rocket nozzle, we use alloys where nickel, not iron, is the primary ingredient. These are materials that do not exist in the wild. You will never walk along a riverbed and find a nugget of Inconel 7A or high-grade stainless steel. These are not products of geology, they are products of intelligence. This brings us back to the mystery of 3E Atlas. When the initial spectrographic analysis of the object came back, the scientific community was confused. They expected to see the standard cosmic signature. They expected a graph showing a massive spike for iron and a smaller humble bump for nickel, consistent with every other asteroid and meteor ever studied in the history of astronomy. That is what a wild rock looks like. Instead, 3I Atlas presented a ratio that was mathematically absurd according to natural laws. The reading showed a composition where nickel was not the sidekick but the hero. The ratio of nickel to iron was flipped or perhaps balanced in a way that mimicked specific terrestrial superalloys used in aerospace engineering. Furthermore, the mixture was too clean. In a natural asteroid, you expect to see a lot of noise, random contaminants like sulfur carbon, and silicates trapped inside the metal matrix. 3I Atlas lacked this noise. It was refined. Why is this ratio impossible for a natural object in the cooling core of a forming planet or a large asteroid? Do metals separate based on their density and chemical affinity? Iron and nickel love to stick together, which is why planetary cores like Earth's are made of them. But there is no known natural process in the vacuum of space that can selectively filter out iron to leave behind such a high concentration of nickel, while simultaneously adding precise trace amounts of other rare transition metals like titanium or vanadium in perfect uniformity. Gravity acts on mass. It does not act like a chef carefully measuring ingredients for a recipe. To find a chunk of metal with the composition of 3I Atlas naturally would be like throwing a bucket of Scrabble tiles onto the floor and having them land to form a perfect Shakespearean sonnet. The probability is not zero, but it is so close to zero that it implies an external hand was involved. This creates a profound distinction between the wild and the artificial. A wild object is shaped by external forces, collisions, gravity, solar wind, and radiation. It is rough, irregular, and chemically heterogeneous. It carries the history of its random encounters. An artificial object is shaped by internal forces by an idea, a blueprint, and a desire to overcome the limitations of nature. It is uniform, purified, and chemically optimized for a specific purpose. The composition of 3I Atlas suggests that the material did not coalesce from a dust cloud. It suggests that the material was smelted. It implies a foundry. But not a foundry on Earth. This implies a foundry capable of operating in zero gravity, capable of processing millions of tons of ore, separating the isotopes, and casting a structure of immense scale. The emotional weight of this realization is staggering. When we look at a mountain, we feel awe at the scale of nature. But when we look at a pyramid, we feel a different kind of awe, a recognition of another mind. 3I Atlas forces us to confront this second type of awe on a galactic scale. We are looking at evidence that the cosmic alchemy of the stars, the brute force fusion of hydrogen and helium, has been superseded by a technological alchemy. Someone or something decided that the natural abundance of elements was not good enough. They decided that iron was too heavy or too prone to magnetism or too weak for their needs, so they took the raw dust of the universe and rearranged it. They defied the natural order of the periodic table to build a hull capable of surviving the dark between the stars. The analysis of the nickel-iron ratio tells us one final chilling thing: 3I Atlas is not a rock. It is a machine, or at the very least a component of one. The universe is vast and full of strange phenomena, but it does not build high-grade aerospace alloys by accident. We are staring at the difference between a pebble and a computer chip only magnified to the size of a city. And just as a computer chip implies a designer, the alloy of 3I Atlas implies an architect. To understand why the arrival of 3I Atlas has shaken the scientific community to its core, we must first look backward. We have to look at the history of our doorstep. For billions of years, our solar system was like a lonely island in the middle of a vast dark ocean. We assume that things drifted past us in the deep water, but nothing ever came close enough to shore for us to see. We were isolated. We were safe. Then the door opened. It did not happen all at once. It happened in a sequence, a slow drumbeat that grew louder with each strike. 3I Atlas is not a solitary event. It is the third chapter in a story that began only a few years ago, a story of 3 travelers who came from the stars. The first traveler, the Scout. The first knock on the door came in October of 2017. We called it 1I, or Oumuamua. The name is Hawaiian, meaning a messenger from afar arriving first. It was a poetic name, but it carried a nervous energy. Oumuamua was our wake-up call. Before this, astronomers believed that interstellar space was full of ice and dust leftovers from the creation of other stars. We expected the first visitor to look like a snowball similar to the comets we see in our own system. But the Scout was different. It defied our expectations immediately. It was not a round snowball. As it tumbled through the darkness, the light reflecting off its surface dimmed and brightened dramatically. This told us it was long and thin, shaped like a cigar or a flattened pancake. It was a shape we had never seen in nature. It was reddish, dried out by millions of years of radiation from random stars. But the true strangeness of Oumuamua was in its movement. As it passed the sun and began to leave, it sped up. It moved faster than the gravity of the sun should have allowed. In a normal comet, this happens when ice melts and shoots out gas, acting like a natural rocket engine. But Oumuamua had no tail. There was no cloud of gas, no dust, no visible engine. It simply pushed itself away from the sun silently and invisibly. Scientists argued for years. Was it a chunk of hydrogen ice? Was it a dust bunny? Or was it, as some dared to whisper, artificial? It was a puzzle with missing pieces. It was weird, but it was just natural enough that we could convince ourselves it was just a rock. It was a strange rock, but a rock nonetheless. The second traveller, the Ghost. 2 years later, in August of 2019, the second traveller arrived. This object was named 2I or Borisov. If Oumuamua was a shock, Borisov was a comfort. When we pointed our telescopes at it, we saw something familiar. It looked exactly like the comets we have here at home. It had a beautiful fuzzy tail of gas and dust. As it got closer to the heat of the sun, it began to break apart, shedding water and chemicals that we recognized. Borisov was the ghost because it was a spectral remnant of a solar system very much like ours. It told us that out there in the dark there are other places with ice dust and familiar chemistry. It calmed our nerves. It made the universe feel understandable again. The scientific community breathed a collective sigh of relief. The strangeness of Oumuamua was dismissed as a fluke, a one-time oddity. Borisov proved that the standard rules of astronomy still applied. We thought we understood the pattern. Interstellar space is full of debris, and occasionally a piece of that debris drifts through our neighbourhood. We went back to our normal lives thinking the mystery was solved. The third traveller, the rule breaker. We were wrong. The pattern was not stabilising, it was escalating. When we first spotted the object we now call 3I or Atlas, we assumed it would be another Borisov. We prepared our instruments to analyse its dust tail. We prepared to measure its water content. We treated it as just another stone in the river. But as Atlas crossed the orbit of Mars, the data began to scream at us. Oumuamua was weird, Borisov was normal, Atlas is impossible. The escalation of strangeness is undeniable. Oumuamua tumbled chaotically end over end like a piece of driftwood caught in a wave. Atlas does not tumble. It rotates with a terrifying mechanical precision. Every rotation takes exactly the same amount of time down to the millisecond with no variation. Nature is rarely so perfect. Nature is messy and wobbly. Atlas is steady. Furthermore, let's look at the speed. The first two travellers moved fast, passing through the solar system at speeds of 20 to 30 kilometers per second relative to the Sun. That is fast, but it is a speed typical for objects falling from deep space. Atlas is different. It entered our system moving slowly, suspiciously slowly. Then at specific points in its journey it changed its velocity without any interaction with a planet. It did not use the gravity of Jupiter to slingshot itself. It simply altered its course. It made a correction. The most disturbing difference, however, is the interaction with the Sun. When Oumuamua passed the Sun, it got a little push. When Borisov passed the Sun, it melted. As Atlas approaches the inner solar system, it is absorbing the solar energy. The thermal sensors on our telescopes show that the object is not getting hot in the way a rock should. A rock heated by the Sun should radiate heat back out into space. Atlas is taking the heat in, but it is not letting it go. It is drinking the energy. The sequence. We must stop looking at these three objects as isolated incidents. We must look at them as a sequence in time. First came the Scout Oumuamua. It was small, hard to see and fast. It dipped in gathered data on our position and left in a hurry. It tested our reaction time, it tested our sensors. Next came the Ghost Borisov. It was a camouflage. It looked normal. It lulled us into a false sense of security, making us believe that this traffic in our solar system was natural and harmless. It lowered our guard. Now we have the heavy. 3I Atlas is not here to scout and it is not here to hide. It is massive compared to the previous two. It is 3 times the size of Oumuamua. It is not hiding its nature. It is breaking the laws of celestial mechanics in plain sight, almost as if it wants us to see it. The progression is clear, the level of complexity is rising, the level of artificial behavior is rising, the interval between arrivals is shrinking. It took billions of years for the first one to arrive. It took 2 years for the second. Now the third is here, and it is behaving with a purpose that the other 2 lacked. This is not a random cluster of rocks. This feels like a procedure. Oumuamua was the question. Borisov was the pause. 3i Atlas is the statement. As we watch Atlas glide silently past the orbit of Mars, moving against the flow of the other planets, we are no longer asking if it is a comet or an asteroid. We are asking much more frightening questions. We are asking who sent the first 2, and what does this third one want? The history of our isolation is over. The era of the travelers has begun, and 3i Atlas suggests that the story is about to take a very dark turn. We are witnessing a chain of events unfolding in real time, and we are realizing perhaps too late that we are not the authors of this story. We are merely the audience watching the stage being set for a finale we are not prepared to understand. The fury of the explosion has long since faded. The violent bursts of energy, the blinding flashes of light, and the chaotic storms of matter have all settled into the pages of cosmic history. What remains now is something far more profound, far more enduring, and infinitely more peaceful. The remnant core, the heart of what was once a giant star, has begun its true journey. It has entered the long interstellar night. Imagine, if you can, a silence so complete that it has weight. It is not merely the absence of noise, it is a physical presence, a heavy, comforting blanket of absolute quiet. Here in the vast expanse between the star systems, there is no air to carry a sound. There is no wind to rustle leaves, no waves to crash against a shore, no voices to disturb the calm. There is only the deep resonating stillness of the vacuum. It is a silence that has existed for billions of years, a silence that wraps around the travelling object like a protective cocoon. As you drift along with this object, you begin to understand the true scale of peace. The object is moving, travelling at incredible speed relative to the galaxy around it. Yet there is no sensation of motion, there is no vibration, no shaking, no sense of rushing forward. Because there is no air to push against, there is no friction. It is a perfect frictionless glide. It is the sensation of floating on a perfectly calm lake at midnight where the water is as smooth as glass and the boat moves without a ripple. You are simply carrying your momentum forward, drifting effortlessly through the endless dark. The environment here is the definition of clarity. Without an atmosphere to scatter the light, the darkness of space is not a muddy grey or a dimmed and shadow. It is a perfect rich velvet black. It is a darkness so pure that it feels soft to the touch. It is the colour of deep sleep, the colour of closing your eyes after a long, weary day. Against this backdrop of infinite black, the distant stars do not twinkle. Twinkling is a trick of the atmosphere as distortion caused by air. Here in the deep void, the stars are steady, unblinking points of diamond light. They are like calm, watching eyes, fixed and immovable in the distance. They are not close enough to provide heat nor bright enough to disturb the darkness. They simply exist, painting the horizon with a dusting of ancient light. The temperature here drops. It drops past the freezing point of water, past the cold of the Arctic winters, down to the fundamental limit of the universe. It settles near absolute zero. But in this narrative of relaxation, this is not a biting, painful cold. Instead, imagine it as a coolness that preserves. It is the refreshing, crisp coolness of the other side of the pillow. It is a stillness of atoms, a slowing down of all vibration. The heat of the chaotic past radiates away, leaving behind a solid, stable and cool calmness. The object is no longer fighting to burn, it is resting. It is cooling down after a lifetime of feverish activity. Time begins to lose its meaning in this void. In the busy world of planets and life, we measure time in seconds, minutes and hours. We rush from one moment to the next. But out here in the space between the stars, the clock ticks with the rhythm of eons. 1 million years pass. To the drifting object, this million years feels like a single slow exhale. The galaxy rotates slightly. The positions of the distant stars shift by a fraction of a degree, but the silence remains broken. The drift continues undisturbed. There are no deadlines here. There is no urgency. There is only the long, luxurious stretch of existence. Another million years pass. The object floats on. It passes through thin wisps of hydrogen gas clouds so spread out that they are thinner than the finest mist. These particles gently brush against the magnetic fields of the object, a ghostly touch that barely registers. It is like walking through a fog so light you cannot feel it on your skin. The object is alone, but it is not lonely. It is solitary in the way a mountain is solitary, or the way the deep ocean is solitary. It possesses a majestic independence. It needs nothing, it asks for nothing, it simply is. As you visualize this journey, let your own sense of time expand. Let go of the minutes of your day. Let go of the hour on the clock. Imagine that your breathing is syncing with the rhythm of this interstellar drift. Inhale, slowly drawing in the peace of the void. Exhale, slowly releasing the heat and noise of the world. You're drifting alongside this ancient traveler. You are weightless. The gravity of your responsibilities has faded away, left behind on a distant planet. Here you are light. You are floating in a suspension of perfect calm. The view from this position is breathtaking in its simplicity. Looking back, the star system where this object was born is now just another speck of light indistinguishable from the millions of others. Looking forward, the destination is unknown and irrelevant. The journey itself is the state of being. To the left and right, the Milky Way stretches out like a spilled river of milk, a band of pearlescent light cutting through the darkness. It is a reminder that you are part of something massive, something grand and slow-moving. The galaxy turns with a majesty that takes distinct eras to complete a single revolution. You are part of that slow cosmic dance. Occasionally the object might pass within a few light years of another star. To a human, a light year is an impossible distance, a chasm of emptiness. But on this scale, it is a neighbourly wave. The light from that neighbour shines a little brighter for a few thousand years, casting a faint pale glow on the surface of the drifting remnant. It is a brief moment of connection, in the long night a nod from one silent wanderer to another, before the drift carries the object back into the deep shadows. The isolation is absolute, and therein lies its beauty. There are no storms here, there are no earthquakes, there is no changing weather, the environment is perfectly stable. It is a sanctuary of constancy. In a universe that is often chaotic and unpredictable, this deep interstellar space is a haven of predictability. You know that the next moment will be as peaceful as the last you'd pass. You know that the silence will hold. You can trust this darkness. It is sturdy enough to hold you. Think of the density of the object you are following. It is heavy-grounded and solid. It anchors you. While the rest of the universe spins and expands, this core remains centered. It creates a gravity of its own, a gentle pull that keeps everything together. Imagine that gravity acting on your body now. Not a heavy crushing weight, but a comforting pressure, like a heavy blanket tucked in around your shoulders. It grounds you. It keeps you from drifting away too fast, holding you securely in this state of relaxation. As the millions of years stretch into tens of millions, the object cools further. It becomes a dark ghost barely visible against the black background. It has become one with the night. It does not seek attention. It does not emit light. It is content to be unseen, to be a secret keeper of the galaxy. It drifts through the vast, empty canyons of space, the regions where there is truly nothing. These are the quietest places in the cosmos. Here, even the faint hum of the background radiation seems to dampen. It is the library of the universe, a place of profound study and quiet contemplation. You are floating through this library of silence. The sensation of your body is fading, replaced by a sense of pure consciousness, pure awareness of the dark. The boundaries between you and the void are softening. You are not separate from the space, you are part of it. You are the silence, you are the stillness. The stars above and below you are like distant city lights viewed from a high airplane window at night. They are beautiful, but they are far away. Their noise and their heat cannot reach you here. You are safe in the space between them. You are suspended in the velvet cradle of the cosmos. 50 million years have passed since the journey began. In the life of the universe, this is less than a blink of an eye. But for the soul seeking rest, it is an eternity of peace. The object has travelled across vast sectors of the galaxy, yet it has never rushed. It has never hurried. It understands that there is no finish line. There is only the drift. Allow yourself to fully embrace this concept of no finish line. There is nothing you need to finish right now. There is no place you need to arrive at. You are allowed to just drift. You are allowed to be still. Like the interstellar object, you are simply existing in the flow of time carried by forces greater than yourself. You can stop steering now. You can let go of the wheel. The momentum of the universe will carry you exactly where you need to go. The cold of the space feels distinctively clean. It is a sterile, pure environment. There is no dust to make you sneeze, no pollen, no pollution. It is a vacuum of perfect cleanliness. Imagine breathing in this clean, cool essence. It cools your throat, calms your chest, and slows your heart rate. With every breath, you internalize the stillness of the stars. With every exhale, you release the friction of the day. The darkness deepens. It is not a scary dark, it is a restful dark. It is the darkness of a room with heavy curtains drawn tight, blocking out the harsh sun. It is a darkness that invites dreams. In this space, your mind can expand. It can wander among the stars without leaving your bed. You are a traveler of the cosmos, a drifter in the long interstellar night. And as the object continues its endless silent journey, drifting toward the edges of the galaxy, it carries you with it into the deepest realms of sleep. The stars blur into a soft, comforting haze. The velvet blackness wraps tighter, warmer, softer. The silence becomes a lullaby, a single long, unbroken note of peace. You are floating, you are drifting, you are safe in the vast, beautiful, empty night. The journey continues, but for now, it is time to rest in the void. The stars will watch over you. The silence will hold you. The night is long and it is yours. The silence of the stars and the debris of history. For decades, when we looked up at the night sky, we were listening. We built giant metal ears, radio telescopes, and pointed them toward distant stars, hoping to catch a whisper, a beep or a pattern of numbers that would prove we are not alone. This was the traditional approach to finding aliens. We assumed that if intelligent life exists, it would want to talk to us. We assumed they are like a cosmic DJ broadcasting a song across the galaxy, waiting for us to tune in. But what if we are wrong? What if they are not broadcasting? What if they are not even there anymore? This is where the conversation shifts. It moves away from the search for living, breathing biology and towards something else, the search for what remains. This is the domain of a fascinating and somewhat controversial idea, championed by physicists like Professor Avi Loeb. It is the transition from searching for signals to searching for physical artifacts. The perspective of Avi Loeb. Professor Avi Loeb is a theoretical physicist who served as the chair of the astronomy department at Harvard University. He's a man deeply respected in the scientific community, yet he is willing to risk his reputation to ask a question that makes many of his colleagues uncomfortable. His perspective is grounded in a simple pragmatic logic. He argues that we are approaching the search for extraterrestrial life with too much bias. We assume aliens are biological creatures like us, living on a planet sending radio waves right now, but biology is fragile. Flesh and blood do not last long in the harsh vacuum of space. Civilizations too might be fragile. They might rise, develop advanced technology, and then destroy themselves through war, climate change, or artificial intelligence gone wrong. However, while a civilization might die, its technology can survive. Professor Loeb suggests that the universe might not be a bustling chat room. Instead, it might be a graveyard. It might be like an ancient desert scattered with the ruins of cities that crumbled millions of years ago. In space, these ruins would not be stone temples. They would be defunct satellites, burnt-out rocket stages, broken probes, or massive structures drifting in the dark. Loeb calls this concept space archaeology. Just as archaeologists on Earth dig through the dirt to find arrowheads or pottery shards from the Roman Empire, space archaeologists should scan the sky for the trash or machinery left behind by civilizations that lived billions of years ago. The Oumuamua mystery. The catalyst for this way of thinking arrived in our solar system in late 2017. Astronomers detected an object moving through space that did not make sense. They named it Oumuamua, a Hawaiian word meaning scout or messenger from afar. Oumuamua was strange. It was not a normal rock. Most asteroids look like potatoes. Oumuamua appeared to be extremely flat like a pancake or long and thin like a cigar. It was tumbling end over end, but the most confusing part was the way it moved. As it passed the sun, it accelerated. It pushed away from the sun faster than gravity alone could explain. Usually comets do this because ice on their surface melts and shoots out gas acting like a little rocket engine. But Oumuamua had no tail of gas, it had no dust cloud. It was just a solid object that sped up. While most scientists tried to find a natural explanation, perhaps it was a hydrogen iceberg or a dust bunny. Professor Loeb asked a forbidden question. What if it is artificial? He suggested that Oumuamua might be a light-seamed sail, a piece of technology designed to catch the light of stars to push a ship forward much like the wind pushes a sailboat. It could be a piece of ancient wreckage, a broken buoy floating in the cosmic ocean drifting through our system by accident. Whether Oumuamua was artificial or not, it opened a door in our minds. It forced us to realise that our solar system acts like a fishing net. As the sun moves through the galaxy, it might catch interstellar objects. If we look closely enough, we might find that some of these objects are not rocks. They might be messages in a bottle. The reality of deep time. To truly understand the ancient artifact hypothesis, we must confront the sheer scale of time. This is often the hardest part for the human brain to grasp. The universe is roughly 13.8 billion years old. The Earth is only about 4.5 billion years old. Human beings, as a technological species capable of sending radio waves, have only existed for about 100 years. That 100 years is a blink of an eye. It is nothing. This means there was a vast amount of time billions of years before Earth even existed, when other stars were born and died. It is statistically probable that civilizations rose and fell long before humanity climbed down from the trees. A civilization could have thrived for 1,000,000 years and then vanished 2 billion years ago. If that happened, we would never hear their radio signals. Those signals would have faded into silence eons ago, but their physical objects could still be here. Think of plastic in our oceans. If humanity disappeared tomorrow, our radio broadcasts would stop immediately. The lights would go out, but our plastic bottles, our gold, and our satellites in orbit would remain for thousands or even millions of years. A passing alien ship would not hear us, but they might find our trash. Avi Loeb argues that the universe is likely full of this interstellar trash. It sounds unglamorous, but it is profound. We might be living in a universe that is cluttered with the drifting machinery of dead cultures, the humble position. This hypothesis forces a deep sense of humility upon us. It challenges our cosmic ego. For most of history, humans believed we were the center of everything. We thought the sun revolved around the Earth. We thought we were the only special creation. Even when we search for aliens, we often arrogantly assume they are currently looking for us, that we are interesting enough to be visited. The ancient artifact hypothesis suggests something much more indifferent. It suggests that we are like ants, walking across a picnic blanket left behind by people who left the park hours ago. The artifacts we might find were not sent to us. They do not care about us. They're just there. Professor Loeb often compares humanity's situation to a child who has never left their house. The child thinks they are the most important thing in the world. But if they walk out the front door and look at the street, they realize there are other houses, other families, and that the world is vast and complex. We have not left our house yet. We are just peering out the window. If we were to find a piece of technology, a crash-landed probe on the moon, or a piece of smart debris floating past Mars, it would prove that we are not the smartest kid on the block. It would prove that someone else played this game before us, and perhaps they played it better. The Great Filter and our future. There is also a darker, more philosophical side to searching for ancient artifacts. If we find ruins, we have to ask, why are they ruined? If we find a galaxy full of dead machinery but no living people, it supports a scary concept called the Great Filter. This is the idea that there is some barrier, some hard challenge, that prevents civilizations from surviving for a long time. Perhaps advanced technology inevitably leads to destruction. Maybe every civilization discovers nuclear power or biotechnology and eventually accidentally kills itself. Finding a dead artifact is a warning. It is a memento mori, a reminder of death on a planetary scale. It tells us that survival is not guaranteed. When we look at an ancient frozen piece of alien engineering, we are looking at a ghost. We are looking at a species that had hopes, dreams, art, and science, but failed to survive the long night of the universe. It forces us to reflect on our own behavior. Are we currently building our own ruins? Will a species that evolves on Earth 5 million years from now find our rovers on Mars and wonder who we were? A new way to look. So how does this change what we do? It means we need to change our instruments. We need to stop just listening for radio beeps and start using high-powered telescopes and cameras to look for physical anomalies. This is the goal of the Galileo project, an initiative led by Professor Loeb. The project aims to build a network of telescopes on Earth to watch the sky specifically for small objects that move strangely. It also aims to design missions to intercept the next Oumuamua. If another object like that enters our solar system, we should not just watch it fly away. We should send a camera to fly alongside it and take a picture. We need to search the moon, because the moon has no atmosphere and no geological activity like volcanoes or tectonic plates. Things that crash there stay there forever. The surface of the moon is like a museum perfectly preserved in a vacuum. If an alien probe crashed there 100 million years ago, it is likely still sitting there waiting for us to notice it. Conclusion: the cosmic horizon. The ancient artifact hypothesis changes the texture of our universe. It changes the cosmos from a dark, empty void into a place rich with history. It invites us to become archaeologists of the Milky Way. It is a viewpoint that requires patience and bravery. It requires the bravery to accept that we might find things we do not understand. We might find technology that looks like magic to us. We might find evidence of civilizations that make our achievements look like child's play. But ultimately, this search is about knowing our place. It is about realizing that the story of the universe is incredibly long and we have only just arrived on the final page. By searching for the heritage of those who came before us, we are trying to understand if we have a future. We are looking into the shadows of the past to find a light that can guide us forward. It is a humbling, quiet, and profound quest. We are not asking to be spoken to, we are simply looking for the footprints of those who walked this path before us, hoping to learn how to walk a little further ourselves. The vast darkness of space began to change. For months, the view outside the windows had been nothing but the deep, endless black of the cosmos, sprinkled with distant stars that looked like cold diamonds. But now something new dominated the view. It was a sphere of rusty red hanging in the void like a heavy precious stone. This was Mars. It was no longer just a point of light in the night sky of Earth. It was a world massive and waiting. As the incoming spacecraft drew closer, the silence of the vacuum seemed to hum with anticipation. This was not an empty arrival. We were not coming to a deserted island. We were being met by the guardians of the planet. These were the eyes orbiting Mars, the robotic sentinels that humanity had sent ahead years ago to watch, to measure, and to prepare the way for this very moment. High above the thin, dusty atmosphere, the first of these mechanical greeters came into focus, though it was thousands of kilometers away. It was the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, often called MRO. To the untrained eye, it might look like a strange collection of shapes, a large silver dish, a boxy body wrapped in gold and long dark wings. But to an engineer or to anyone who understands the dream of spaceflight, it was a masterpiece of art. The MRO was beautiful in a way that only functional things can be. Its body was covered in multi-layer insulation that looked like crinkled gold foil. This gold skin was not for decoration, it was a shield. It protected the delicate electronic heart of the machine from the freezing cold of the Martian shadow and the searing heat of direct sunlight. Every fold in that gold foil told a story of survival. It had endured years of radiation and the harsh environment of deep space, yet it glittered brilliantly against the black background of the universe. Stretching out from the sides of the MRO were its solar arrays. These long dark panels were like the wings of a great bird catching the weak sunlight that reaches this far out in the solar system. They adjusted themselves automatically, tilting and turning with slow, graceful movements to drink in the energy from the sun. There was a calmness to its movement, a silent ballet performed by a machine millions of kilometers from its creators. The most striking feature of the MRO was its eye. This was the high-resolution imaging science experiment camera. It was not just a camera, it was a telescope with a diameter of 0.5 meter. For years, this unblinking eye had been staring down at the red dirt below. It had counted rocks, mapped the edges of craters, and watched the shifting of dust dunes. It had seen avalanches of ice and dust tumbling down red cliffs. Now it turned its attention to the sky, acting as a communications relay, a bridge connecting the new arrivals to the people back home. Further away in the orbit, another veteran of the void was sweeping past. This was Mars Express. It had a different shape, more box-like, utilitarian and rugged. It had been circling the red planet for a very long time. Its radar antennas extended out like long, thin whiskers, sensing the hidden layers of ice beneath the dry Martian surface. Mars Express was a testament to endurance. It had outlived its original mission by many years, refusing to give up, continuing to send its song of data back to Earth. These machines were not alive, yet they felt alive. They were the extensions of human curiosity. Every wire, every bolt, every line of computer code inside them was placed there by a human hand. They represented the best of us. They represented the part of humanity that wants to explore, to understand, and to connect. Seeing them floating there, totally silent, executing their commands with perfect precision, brought a lump to the throat. They were the welcoming committee, the silent brothers of the ship now arriving. Below these orbiting machines, the planet itself served as a breathtaking backdrop for this rendezvous. Mars was not a flat, boring ball. It was a world of dramatic texture and colour. From orbit, you could see the scars of the planet's violent past. To the east, the Great Canyon system, known as Valles Marineris, cut across the equator. It looked like a giant claw mark scratched into the surface of the world. It was so long that if you placed it on Earth, it would stretch across the entire United States. But here seen from space, it was a deep dark gash of purple and brown shadows amidst the endless ochre plains. To the west, the mighty volcanoes rose up, piercing the thin atmosphere. Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system, stood like a shield. It was so tall that its peak poked out above the dust storms, a lonely island in a sea of red clouds. The caldera at its summit was vast enough to swallow a city. The colours of the planet shifted as the spacecraft moved. There were shades of butterscotch rust, dried blood, and pale salmon. The polar caps at the north and south gleamed with a blinding white purity, a mix of water ice and frozen carbon dioxide. There was a violence to the landscape, ancient lava flows, impact craters from asteroids that had hit billions of years ago, and swirling dust devils that spun like tornadoes. Yet from this high altitude it all looked peaceful. It was a frozen, silent majesty. As the arriving spacecraft began its braking maneuver, the handshake began. This was the most critical moment of the encounter. It was an invisible connection, a thread of radio waves reaching out across the void. The incoming ship sent out a signal, a ping of digital information. It travelled at the speed of light, crossing the empty space to the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. The orbiter caught the signal with its large dish antenna. Inside its computer brain, it processed the greeting. It checked the trajectory, the speed, and the health of the new arrival. Then it turned its dish toward Earth and relayed the message. This relay was essential. Mars is so far away that radio signals take anywhere from 3 to 22 minutes to travel to Earth, depending on where the planets are in their orbits around the Sun. Today the delay was about 12 minutes. Back on Earth. In the control rooms of Houston, Pasadena, and Darmstadt, the world was waiting. The room was filled with rows of computer screens and the soft hum of cooling fans. Men and women in blue polo shirts and headsets sat frozen, their eyes locked on the data streams. Coffee cups sat cold on the desks. No one spoke. The air was thick with a mixture of terror and hope. They were looking at data that was already 12 minutes old. They were watching a ghost of the past. If something went wrong at Mars right now, they would not know about it for another 12 minutes. This delay made the orbiters even more important. The robots had to be smart. They had to make decisions on their own. They had to be the eyes and ears for a humanity that was too far away to help in real time. Suddenly the screens flickered. The signal from MRO came through. A cheer did not erupt immediately. Instead, there was a collective exhale, a release of tension that had been building for months. The data showed that the handshake was successful. The incoming ship was healthy. The orbiters were tracking it perfectly. On the screens, a simulation showed the positions of the spacecraft. It looked like a complex dance. The incoming ship was slowing down, using the friction of the thin Martian atmosphere to reduce its speed of thousands of kilometers per hour. The orbiters were adjusting their paths to stay in contact. It was a choreography of physics calculated by mathematicians and executed by machines. The beauty of this moment was not just in the visuals of the red planet or the shiny gold foil of the satellites. The true beauty lay in the audacity of it all. We, a species of biological creatures who evolved to hunt and gather on the grassy plains of Earth, had built eyes that could see across the solar system. We had built voices that could speak through the vacuum, and now we were about to knock on the door of a new world. As the new ship settled into its parking orbit, drifting alongside its robotic brothers, the view of Mars filled the windows completely. The curve of the planet blocked out the stars. The thin blue halo of the atmosphere glowed on the horizon where the sun was beginning to set. The sun on Mars is smaller than it is on Earth. It looks about 2/3 the size. As it dipped below the red horizon, the sky turned a ghostly blue, fading into a deep violet. It was an alien twilight, cold and hauntingly beautiful. The Mars Express orbiter passed silently overhead, its radar instruments pinging the surface below, continuing its eternal watch. The MRO adjusted its camera, snapping a high-resolution image of the new ship against the backdrop of the Tharsis volcanic plateau. For a brief moment, the three machines were aligned. The old explorer, the watchful guardian, and the new arrival. It was a meeting of generations. The metal and silicon of the older probes seemed to welcome the new visitor. They had prepared the maps. They had checked the weather. They had watched the dust storms rise and fall for years, all to ensure that this moment would be possible. This was not just a technical achievement. It was a promise kept. It was the physical manifestation of human hope. Looking down at the cratered surface, one could not help but feel a sense of profound humility. The universe is vast and dangerous, filled with radiation and cold and darkness. But here in the orbit of a rusted world, the warm spark of human intelligence was alive and well. The eyes orbiting Mars remained open, blinking their red and green lights in the darkness. watching over the sleepers in the ship, watching the red dust swirl below, and watching the blue star of Earth shining brightly in the distance. The wait was over. The next chapter of history was about to begin, written in the red sands below. We have reached the end of our long journey together. The screens have gone dark, the data has been stored away, and the humming machinery of the observatory has quieted down to a soft, rhythmic whisper. The great excitement that carried us through the stars past the rings of Saturn and beyond the edge of our solar system has now settled into a deep and profound stillness. It is time to rest. It is time to look back one last time before we close our eyes and let the current of sleep carry us away. Think back to that mysterious signal, that faint pulse of energy travelling across the velvet darkness of space. Throughout this story, we wondered what it was. Was it a message? Was it a greeting sent by another civilization, a hand reaching out across the impossible distances to say, "Hello, we are here too"? Or was it something natural? Perhaps it was the final heartbeat of a dying star spinning rapidly in the silence, sending out a beam of light like a lighthouse on a dark ocean. The truth is, as the night settles in around you, the answer does not matter as much as the feeling it leaves behind. If it was a machine built by other voyeurs, then we know that the universe is filled with minds like ours dreaming and wondering. We know that somewhere under a different sun, someone else is looking up at their sky and asking the same questions. We are neighbours in a very large town. If it was just a star or a cloud of gas or a natural wave of gravity that is equally beautiful, it means the universe is alive with energy. It means that nature is capable of creating songs that travel for millions of years just to brush against our planet. In either case, the conclusion is the same: we are not alone. We often feel small when we look at the night sky. We feel like tiny specks on a small rock floating in an endless void. But tonight, let's change that perspective. We are not separate from the vastness above us. We are made of it. The iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, the carbon in our skin, every single atom was cooked inside the hearts of ancient stars. When a star explodes, it sends its dust out into the galaxy, and eventually that dust comes together to form planets and oceans and people. You are not just living in the universe, you are the universe. You are a piece of the cosmos that has woken up to look at itself. When you look up, you are looking into a mirror. The silence of space is not empty. It is the silence of a home that is waiting for you to rest. That signal, whether natural or artificial, was a reminder of your connection to everything that exists. You are part of the great, wide, wonderful tapestry of time and space. You belong here. Now let that feeling of belonging wash over you like a warm wave. The search is over. The questions have all been asked. The answers can wait for another day. Right now, the only thing that matters is peace. Imagine that you are standing on the edge of a quiet beach, but instead of an ocean of water, you are looking out at an ocean of stars. The horizon before you is not a line where the sky meets the earth, but a soft glowing curve where the waking world meets the world of dreams. This is your new horizon. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the air filling your lungs, bringing with it a sense of calm. As you breathe out, imagine you are releasing all the tension from your body. Let it float away like smoke in the wind. Focus on your feet. Feel them relaxing, becoming heavy. The sensation moves up to your legs, your knees, your thighs. Every muscle is loosening, uncoiling, giving up the weight it has carried all day. You are safe, you are supported. Gravity is holding you in a gentle embrace, keeping you anchored to the earth while your mind prepares to float free. Let that relaxation flow upward into your stomach and your chest. Your breathing is slow and steady like the tides of the ocean, in and out, rising and falling. There is no rush, there is nowhere else you need to be. The screens are off, the messages are sent, the world is sleeping and you are joining it. Feel your shoulders drop, let them fall away from your ears. We carry so much weight on our shoulders, but tonight you can put it down. Let the relaxation flow down your arms, past your elbows, into your wrists, and all the way to the tips of your fingers. Your hands are open and soft, resting peacefully. Now soften your neck and your jaw. Unclench your teeth. Let your tongue rest gently on the floor of your mouth. Smooth out your forehead. Wipe away any frown lines or worry. Let your eyelids become heavy, so heavy that they feel sealed shut, protecting you from the light. You are drifting now. You are moving towards that new horizon. It is a place of total acceptance. In this place, there are no hard questions, only soft answers. Imagine yourself floating in the center of that vast star-filled space we talked about. But it is not cold. It is warm and comfortable. You are weightless. Around you, the stars are not distant points of fire, but soft glowing lights like candles in a dark room. They are watching over you. They are humming a low, quiet lullaby that vibrates through your very bones. You are drifting deeper and deeper. The horizon is getting closer. It is a soft purple light inviting you in. As you float, you realize that you are part of this silence. You are part of this peace. The universe is breathing with you. Inhale and feel the stardust within you. Exhale and let go of the earth. Inhale, peace. Exhale, sleep. The journey has been long and you have learned so much. But the best part of any journey is the rest that comes at the end. You have earned this rest. The mysteries of the cosmos will still be there when you wake up. But for now, they are just bedtime stories. They are the blanket that covers you. You're sinking into a bed of clouds. Soft, white, fluffy clouds that support every inch of your body. You're sinking down, down, down into the velvet darkness. It is a kind darkness. It is the darkness of a deep restorative sleep. Everything is fading now. The words I am speaking are becoming distant echoes. The thoughts in your head are turning into mist. There is only the rhythm of your breath and the beating of your heart, slow and steady like a drum in the night. Drift toward the horizon. Cross over into the land of dreams. You are safe. You are loved. You are home. Sleep now. Deep, deep sleep. Silence. Peace. Good night.